So anytime someone purchases our products, that's what they're doing. They're taking a bite out of climate change.
Hello, thank you for checking out Earth Care. Today we're heading to Toronto to catch up with Sophie Robertson from the Spent Goods Company. Spent Goods is all about making delicious food while reducing climate change. And they make that happen by using previously used ingredients that would otherwise be on their way to a landfill. Sophie joins Earth Care to talk about the environmentally friendly secret behind their products. Plus, she's going to talk about how a circular economy is going to help fight climate change. Sophie Robertson, let's just start here. What is the Spent Goods Company?
So Spent Goods started in 2018. The founder is Dihan Chandra, and he basically was at his local pub and asked the question of like, hey, what actually happens to all the grains from making beer? And he found out that they typically go to landfill or for animal feed. And it kind of was like a light bulb moment for him. And he looked into it and, this is still a valuable resource. What can we do with it? And so that's how the Spent Goods Company was born. And so we take the spent grains that were used in the brewery to make beer, and then we use them in baking bread products primarily. So that's not necessarily like all we're about in terms of baked goods, although they're delicious. We're trying to basically increase the social acceptance of upcycling food because we see it primarily, I guess, as a waste item, even though it's not waste. It's just done for that purpose, but it's still very, very nutritious. It actually is a higher protein content with using the barley, and it lowers the gluten content of the bread as well. I know that's a big topic, having gluten-free and whatnot, and gluten sensitivity. So we have customers who actually are they are gluten sensitive and they're fine with our bread and really enjoy it. So yeah, that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. Is we're just trying to change the perspective of how we see waste in general.
This is very cool because we talk about upcycling and how important it is to repair or just simply upcycle in general, but it's not often. In fact, this was probably the first instance where I heard the term used with food. And so I guess, before I started researching this and before I started researching even composting in general, it's just so easy to think, okay, if I throw out food, it's fine. It's just going to decompose, like we're good. But that's really not the case. So what is the big benefit here to reusing and repurposing that barley that would otherwise end up in a landfill?
That's what I thought as well. I thought, it's before I started composting, I thought it was gross. And to be quite frank, I think that's what a lot of people think before they do it. This is actually, in particular, the grains are not, they're still usable. So it's, even though we kind of like, we scoff it off to be like it's waste, but it's actually very much still usable. But to your point with the it being sent to landfill, it doesn't break down because there's no room for it to breathe like compost would normally. So what it does is it creates methane. And a lot of people have probably heard of this now. It creates greenhouse gas emissions. And so by us using the grains, we're literally diverting that from the landfill and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So anytime someone purchases our products, that's what they're doing. They're taking a bite out of climate change.
I love that. That should be on a t-shirt. I would buy that in a second. Now, the mission on your website describes some pretty ambitious goals. One of them is from turning bread into beer and then back into bread again, unless I got that wrong. Beer into bread into beer again. There we go.
Yeah, so we did have a project. This was before I came on. So I believe we put some bread that we had made, I believe, back into the brewing process. So that was kind of like a test, like a pilot to see if it worked, and it did. So that's, again, it's part of our mission in just increasing the social acceptance of reusing food. That's perfectly good. I mean, there's 16 million kilos of spent grains that go to landfills in Ontario alone annually. So if we can take parts of that out and start changing the perspective of how we see this food and turn it into a valuable asset, then we're winning. That's the circular economy at work right there.
Okay, so circular economy, that's something I want to talk about because this is the first time I've heard of that term before, especially used in a business operation. What is that?
Yeah, so we're currently in a linear economy. So that's like taking items from or resources from the planet, making something with it, and then expecting that there's just going to be disposal afterwards. But the circular economy is you're designing that out from the onset. So that's what we're trying to do is we're taking something that would normally be seen as waste and putting it back into circulation. And so that you're not left with waste at the end of it. So it's just changing the mindset so that everything is just goes back into the process.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly.
Especially when beer and bread are involved. Why should we care about a circular economy? Is this something that other businesses should adopt? Are there going to be benefits to other businesses getting on board with this, operation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it costs money to waste, to be honest. I mean, it costs money in terms of, primarily you're spending money for those items that you're using, and then it often costs money to actually dispose of it, or it's taking up space within your facility. So if you're able to actually reuse that, then you've turned it into something that you can actually sell again. And there are so many different things now within Ontario and Canada that are supporting the circular economy because they're realizing like our landfills are running out and we don't really have the space anymore. So it's really important that we use the things that we already have in circulation and make it valuable again.